Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PV Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. As always, Ambassador Anil Trigunayat brings us a diplomatic view of what is happening around the world. We have an important development, the peace accord, or so-called in double quotes peace accord, that is taking shape in Gaza. And what is really going on? What is Trump's back-end plan? Is it going to really work? Because we already see that some of the international stabilization force partners are being objected to by Israel, Turkey, for example. So all that and more. Let's welcome Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. Ambassador sir, namaskar and welcome to PV Guru's channel. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Iyer. It's a great pleasure to be again on your channel.
So viewers, Ambassador Trigunayat comes once a month, typically around this time, like either, I don't remember the regular time, but he was traveling. You know, some of them are so accomplished, my guess. They were busy when they were in service. They're busier after service because their services are required for the country. So I tip my hat to you, sir. I don't want to say where you were, but I know you are very, very busy, and so much thanks for taking out this time to talk to us. Talk to us a little bit about, take us back a little bit. This Hamas Middle East conundrum, it started in 1917, I think, Balfour Declaration.
87.
Yeah. Over to you, sir.
Okay,
yeah, let's start from there. Yes.
Yeah. Well, as you know, and your viewers would know that the biggest problem in the whole of Middle East has been the issue of Palestine. Now, after the First World War, the Ottoman Empire, which was then completely disintegrated, and it was being divided between the British and the French. And therefore, at the same time, the Jews were also the Jewish lobby, which used to be there, called as Zionists. They started asking for their own homeland. And the British Foreign Secretary, actually wrote a letter, which is barely 67 words, letter word. And in that letter, he had promised the Israelis a homeland for the Jews. And that was found out eventually that this would be based in Palestine, which the Jews traditionally claim to be their own land. Of course, if you were to dive deep into the history, both the Palestinians and the Israelis or the Jews will claim their ancestry to this land. Whatever be the case, that is something that is very difficult to argue it out, or you can't convert the non-convert or convert the converted in any way. So both are very equally wanting this whole land for themselves. But over the time, as you know, that this Palestinian lands, a new state like Jordan, Transjordan, others were created. But at the same time, this particular area was kept as a mandate by the British from 1923 onwards till 1948. When 1945, when the United Nations was established, and then we had Resolution 181, UN Security Council, which decided that there have to be two states, and Israel will be one state and Palestine will be another state. Now, since then, we have seen that this appears to be very, very partial to the Jews or the Israelis, because of the total land of 55% was given to the Israel and 45% to the Palestinian, who were until then were the inhabitants in the whole of the land. So they thought that they were being shortchanged, and therefore all the Arab countries, whether it is Egypt, Syria, Iraq, all of the big powers they used to be at the time, they all attacked Israel at the time, and they tried to secure some of the land. And that's how the several wars went on. Eventually, by 1967, Israelis had become very powerful, very strong, and they were fighting for their land, for their cause. And they occupied the large territories, both in Egypt and Sinai, in Golan Heights, as well as the West Bank. And then 1973, we had yet another war. But after that, of course, we had the Madrid Conference, we had the Oslo Accords, we had all that. So Egypt was the first country to normalize ties with Israel, and they had the peace treaty, which they signed with them in 1979. And thereafter, the second country which signed the peace treaty, another adjacent country, which is Jordan. which also is very historic, and I was ambassador there, so I know about it. And the Jordanian king was entrusted with the task of looking after, or is trustee of, all the Christian places as well as the third holiest mosque called Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, as you know, the Al-Aqsa and the Wailing Wall and all that area, all the three Abrahamic religions are said to be born in that particular
Jerusalem. Yeah.
Jerusalem, and that is what is supposed to be controlled or looked after by the Jordanian kings traditionally. But this, of course, always is a cantankerous issue between the Israelis and the, because Israeli security can prevent anything and anybody at any time when they feel like. So this kind of a problem continued, and nobody was serious actually to resolve the situation. And therefore, we had earlier all these wars between the Arab countries as well as with the between Israel. But then in 1980s, we saw that the growth of another movement, which was very rabid fundamentalist movement called Hamas, which grew in Gaza. And their basically fundamental theory and philosophy was they did not recognize Israel as a state, number one, and number two, they wanted to throw them out of the place, and that was not going to be possible. But many of the theorists say, and even Israeli media and others write, that Hamas was actually also the creation of the Israeli state, in which the current Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu, who has been in power for more than 20 years, has also been instrumental to a great extent for their survival. And this is something that they have not denied either. So this, why was it done? The reason was that the Palestinian movement could have become very, very united under the PLO. And their PLO was Fatah, and therefore there was elections were held in 2006. And then during those elections in Gaza, the Hamas became the victorious party through a democratic election. But then the Western countries, Israelis, did not recognize them because they said they are a terrorist state and therefore they cannot be. But they continued to rule. So today also, when you are talking of the war is happening between a democratically elected government, which never had an election thereafter from 2007 onwards, and Palestinians on the other side in the West Bank. And Gaza was completely ruled by Hamas. So they, of course, there have been meetings among the various groups and various people, but there have been already 4 wars between Hamas and Israelis. None of them really was very, very dangerous or disastrous, so to say, until we saw October 7, 2023, that happened. Now, why did that happen? That is also very important. Over time, we have seen that more and more Arab countries had become virtually immune to the Palestinian issue. It was sort of a Palestinian fatigue that had set in. And we were seeing that Israelis were continuing, and then during President Trump's first term, he worked very hard for creating an Abraham Accords in which UAE, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco normalized relations with Israel. And that was a very big achievement, I think, for President Trump and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And this is what gave Israelis a great comfort as well as confidence that they are being accepted by nearly everybody. Because see, whether we like it or not, most people, most countries in the region might say they are doing nothing with the Israelis, but they have had the security relationship, a lot of under-the-table dealings with the Israelis, irrespective. All the regional countries have had these relations, including the Saudi Arabia and others. But over time, what we saw is that they have become pragmatic, so to say. And they realize that this two-state solution will remain to be talked about, but it's unlikely to happen. And there is an Arab peace plan which was passed out in Saudi Arabia's leadership. And there is an Arab League resolution, there's OIC resolution, there are UN Security Council resolutions, umpteen number of resolutions which nobody cared about. So there is a lot of, I would say, statements of not really the intent, but a statement just to convey a point that, okay, we are also supporting a two-state solution. And even the UNGA in 170, 180 countries have supported that. Large number of countries have even recognized a state of Palestine. And the Palestinians recently, their flag was also, unfurled at the UN. Now, what has happened? Why did it happen October 7? In my view, my understanding is, if you remember that in New Delhi, we had the G20 summit in September 2023, India's presidency. And that time, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was here. And in response to one of the queries, and of course, we signed this IMEC, if you remember. This
Yes,
is
yes.
the India, Middle
India
East, Europe,
Middle East corridor. Yeah, yeah.
which was like India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and up onto Greece and other countries, Europe.
Yes, yes,
So it
yes.
was a very important initiative, which means that virtually legitimizing Israeli existence in that sense by the Arab world, whether we like it or not.
Correct. Right.
And the Crown Prince also made a statement that the normalization of diplomatic relations with Israel could be faster than you expect.
Yes.
Now, imagine why Saudi Arabia is so important for this cause. A, Saudi Arabia is, a country which is the leader of the world. This is the most powerful economy, most powerful country, the leader of the Islamic world. They have so therefore it is extremely important that the Saudi Arabia continues to support them and continues to stand with this cause of Palestine. And that's when the Hamas realized that if Saudi Arabia also normalizes the relations with Israel, then their cause will be completely lost. And I believe that apart from whatever their grudges and all are there, they obviously were very strongly in against any normalization with Israel, and that's why the Hamas made that unprecedented attack and killed 1,200 Israelis and took about 250 odd hostages. Now that has happened for the first time. There's such a large number of people. Now, why did they take the hostages? Because until then, whenever the one or two Israelis were taken hostage, the Palestinians or the Hamas was able to get at least 1,000 of their Palestinian prisoners released in lieu thereof. Now, that was perhaps their own. So this was like a kind of a bounty that they got and they never thought that this war is going to last that long. Now, of course, this was a failure of the most professional intelligence service, the army, that they had become so complacent about the Palestinians. They thought that they had created this electronic wall or whatnot, and all they depended on technology, which failed them completely. Because this would have to be studied how these Gazan or Hamas people were able to come into, through these gliders and AK-47s and all that, and they just created a mayhem. And there, of course, Passover was there. There was a festival going on, and so many people lost their lives. That was the most horrible thing, and it was rightly so that it was treated as a terror attack. India was also, Prime Minister Modi condemned it as a terror attack. Thereafter, what happens is the biggest problem, and that is that Israel did what it does the most, and that is that it wants to resolve every problem through force, and it takes a security-minded approach. And so it started with the objective that they are going to destroy Hamas, number one, and number two, there was an implicit objective of taking over Gaza once again and clean it up of the Palestinians. So that has been their primary objective from day one. They went in through air bombing, and then they finally went through the ground. And we have seen what has happened. They have been stuck there for more than 2 years now. Hamas is still alive. Hamas is decimated, definitely. But it is an organization which they are negotiating with for these kind of hostages. Finally, what happened that President Trump, when he was elected, he always maintained that none of these wars would happen if he was the president. So he told both Netanyahu and the Hamas, threatened them that there will be hell to pay and all that. And he said that I want this to happen before I get into the White House, second time. First time also he had tried something called his deal of the century for the Palestinians, which were rejected by everybody, because these are not deals, they are emotions for both Israelis and the Palestinians, which is they are heavily invested in this because of their history, because of their land and all that. So that is something that continues. But this time, what we have seen is President Trump forced it, and there was a ceasefire on the 19th of January, before he took over one day. But that was, in my view, was there basically to please him. Of course, some people were released, and this happened, but very soon, none of them, both sides, were not serious about it, and therefore, very soon, the fighting resumed, and it continued again. Now, in the meantime, the humanitarian catastrophe with 67,000 people being killed and more children, of course, even if 25% you can say, or 40%, as the Israelis claim, are the Hamas fighters and all that. So, rest were a lot of casualties. More worrying part was that the United Nations was sidelined completely. None of the Security Council resolution could pass because America will always support them and will always veto it. Then humanitarian disasters started happening, and more and more countries eventually were feeling that Israel is beyond any control by anybody, and it was as if Israel was running the U.S. foreign policy. Basically, this is what exactly. Of course, we all know that there is a very strong Jewish lobby, but this time you have witnessed, as a counter to that, a lot of Arab lobby has also come into play, and therefore situation is, but finally more and more European countries, whether UK, France, Spain and others, started this. They said that we will also implement the ICC arrest warrant against Netanyahu. You know, when he went recently to the United Nations, his plane was not allowed to fly over European countries.
Yeah,
and
therefore he had to circumvent it. Yes.
So he had to go through. So he was being diplomatically isolated. Now, one of the worst mistakes that he made, in my view, strategic mistake, which was recently forced Trump's hands, was that he attacked the Hamas negotiating team in Doha. Now, Qatar, a small country, but which hosts the largest US airbase, where the president, when he came here, he was given a plane gifted by them for the Air Force One by the Qatari Emir to them at $400 billion plane. Billions of dollars in investments. And Qatar has been playing a major role as an international interlocutor, both with Taliban as well as with Hamas. They have been supporting Hamas as well, but in collusion with the Israelis. It is not that they were doing it on their own. President Herzog himself has thanked Qatari Emir for helping with Gaza. Now, these are the kind of things that have been happening. So it's been a very complex, complicated situation. Finally, President Trump also lost his cool in this whole thing, and he really got very unhappy with Netanyahu. And for the first time in their history, in public view, he made Netanyahu apologize to the Qatari Emir. Now, that is something that shows that the whole of Middle East was totally completely up against the Israelis and the United States. So US was losing its very big market, which for arms, ammunition, this energy security, as well as the confidence of these people. And the China and Russia and others are waiting to get in there in a very big way. So therefore, he took this decision and he forced Netanyahu to agree to a ceasefire, apart from apologizing to them. And secondly, what he did, he had signed an agreement with Qatar that if anybody attacks you, US Army will retaliate. Now, that is something. He also, walked out of the Iranian deal, the nuclear deal with Iran, Joint Comprehensive Partnership Agreement that was there, which caused Iran to continue to enrich uranium. And then finally, in order to stop the war between Iran and Israel and further escalation, the Americans came in and pro forma, I believe so, they attacked some of the facilities, nuclear facilities in Iran, but then allowed Iran the off-ramp to attack the American base in Qatar.
Yes.
This was all,
consolation prize.
Consolation prize. Because Iranians, despite everything, I think most people who have observed it, they were hit very badly, but then they hit the Israelis also rather quite bad. So it was a match that is still unfinished. They are doing it. For the moment, the ceasefire, which has been happening second time, it has not gone to the second phase, is holding out. But I don't know what President Trump's real plan is, whether he wants still to make it to Riviera minus the Palestinians there, so the Gaza there, or he is genuinely interested in some kind of a reconstruction of the place minus Hamas.
Thank you so much, sir. We just put up the IMEC map just for our reference for viewers. So this is the IMEC map. This is the G20 incident, or this is what was discussed in G20, which was what Ambassador Anil Trigunayat was mentioning. So this is the IMEC corridor, India, Middle East, Europe corridor. And there are signs that this is being revived. Ambassador Trigunayat, 2 or 3 things I wanted to highlight here. See, Saudi Arabia was building the city of the next millennium. It was called Neom, Neom. Now, Neom was being built along the, I think if I remember correctly, where the confluence of Red Sea and the Jordan River, which goes up and separates Israel and Jordan and so on and so forth. And there is a small area where Saudi Arabia also comes in. Now, that city, they have already sunk in billions, but after the October 7 incident, that has been put on hold. And nobody knows what's going to happen there. Saudi Arabia realizes that their energy is not going to be there forever, that they need to diversify. In fact, they are buying up sports teams. There is a strong rumor doing the rounds that they might buy the entire IPL franchise. And you will not have Delhi Chargers or Delhi whatever. You'll have Jeddah Jaguars and, Saudi Super Kings and things of that nature. This might happen in the near future. But beyond sports, Saudi Arabia is also trying to diversify into other places. Now, in all these things, they are kind of quietly steering the ship from behind. Saudi has not joined BRICS. They said we are looking at it, but they never officially joined it. UAE has joined. Saudis have still held back. So in what I'm trying to ask you is, Saudi is a key player here. And even in this implementation of the accord, Saudis are supposed to be the ones putting some of the bill for the reconstruction of Gaza that Trump has promised. In fact, not just Saudis, but many of the Middle Eastern countries, the rich countries. What is this problem now that in the International Stabilization Force, who are the members designated by Trump or America, I should say, and why is Israel objecting to Turkey? So there are 2 Turkiyas that I know of, Ambassador Trigunayat. Turkey is not like any other Islamic country, viewers. They are quite developed. Their corporate structure is well defined. They have a fairly good corporate structure. They are very key because they control those 2 straits from Black Sea into the Mediterranean. They have a lot of shipping routes. So that is one side. Erdogan might be a rabbit because he is trying to position himself as the Khalifa, because that sounds nice for the Islamic Ummah and all that. Let's just set that thing aside for a minute. Turkey is a professional army also. What is Israel's problem with that, sir?
No, the Israel's problem is fundamental. And both between Turkey and Israel, of course, they have collaborated, if you remember, in Azerbaijan, between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Nagorno-Karabakh. It was Pakistan, Azerbaijan, Israel, and Turkey. All of them were working on that. So they selectively, plus also in the Mediterranean, they have been working together. But at the same time, Turkey considers itself as to be a big power, major power, and it is the pole in the region, if you were to see. Secondly, it also supports Muslim Brotherhood. And Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood are virtually quite similar to that. So that also is a big no-no for the Israelis. He even now says that if Israel goes away, goes out of this Gaza deal, he will go and bomb Israel. Now, so this is a very difficult situation between these 2 countries. It is historic, it is also current now. And this is also a power play between the 2 sides. Now, Turkey is in a very special position because it's a NATO country, number 1. It also follows a policy whereby it's a strategic location, and it has been playing a very big role of a mediator in the region, basically. Whether it is with the Hamas, whether it is with any other problem anywhere, plus also with Russia. So between Russia and the US, it is also a go-between the 2 countries. So most of the meetings have been held in Ankara or in Istanbul. Likewise for the Hamas, and this has happened. Yesterday, even the Pakistan-Afghanistan meeting that was held in Turkey. So this is the role that it has played very strongly. So President Trump understands that they have most professional army. The defense industry is very highly developed. He has excellent relations with big powers, and therefore it is something to have him on a good side. Now, President Trump was very keen on the Turkish army to go in. In fact, there is a story, I don't know how far it is true or not, that when the Sharm el Sheikh summit, which happened just recently, apparently President Trump was here before in Jerusalem, and when he was addressing the parliament, thereafter he asked Netanyahu to come to Sharm el Sheikh. And Netanyahu was almost there, and the Turkish president Erdogan was flying in. And as soon as he heard that Netanyahu was coming, he told the Americans and the Egyptians that he will not come if Netanyahu is coming. And therefore, Netanyahu was asked not to go. So he has that kind of power. So now Israel has said clearly that he does not want the Turkish army there, because they are also having a problem with Turkey in Syria. If you come to think of it, Syria is currently major control of Turkey today. And again, they are face to face there. So that they have these strategic problems. And even Hamas also, in Gaza also, Turkey comes in a big way. Turkey has a base in Doha also, in Qatar. So it is trying to become a major player, so to say. And it weaponizes its foreign policy very easily. It has done it. And I was ambassador to Libya, and I have seen what they have done there. They have problem with Greece, and they continue to do so. So in the Mediterranean, whether it is Mediterranean, whether it is in the Middle East or anywhere else, and of course the Khalifa thing always remains, and that is personal to Erdogan. That is not necessarily for the country. So I think that is the problem between Israel and this, and rather more than Israel, it is problem between Netanyahu and Erdogan.
Thank you so much, sir. And speaking of the Greek-Turkey relationship, recently, Greece got, I think, a few F-35s. And as soon as those things landed in Greece, there were articles in newspaper, they're saying, now we can do a sneak attack on Turkey. Both are members of NATO. That's how deep their animosity runs. And it's really strange. They never change their stripes. And one thing that I really find problematic in all this stuff, Ambassador Trigunayat, look at Yazidis, and now look at the Druze community. The microscopic communities going about their business. They never interfered in any of these wars. Yet, when there is frustration, these are the people who end up being victims. Very, very sad. And what is their fault? I mean, Druze community and Yazidis, they have some concepts of Sanatana Dharma in their religion. But they never go and take up arms. They have been in isolated pockets. Yet, Syria tried to obliterate them out of existence. Only after Israel, started smashing up the tanks that Syria was trying to move, that Syria stopped. Now Israel is saying, okay, now we can't stop here. We need to get the Turkiyas out of Syria. And what you said is absolutely right. But let me ask you this question, sir. Israel has been fighting with a multi-front war against Hezbollah, against Houthis, against Hamas, against Iran, against Syria now, and shadow warfare against Turkey. Plus, they support Azerbaijan, which is a Muslim country. See, this is the other interesting thing. Azerbaijan attacks Armenia, which India supports. But this is the one situation where Azerbaijan is being supported by Israelis, whereas India is supplying arms to Armenia. I can't figure out how this whole math works. At the same time, both are very good friends outside of that context. Now, moving forward, we all knew that nothing is going to work here. There are still a few hostages left with the Hamas hands. What I'm also hearing is that of the 20,000, supposedly the Hamas warriors that are still there, a significant portion has slipped through the tunnels under Rafah into Egypt, and from there onwards to North African countries such as what you said, Libya and Algeria and so on, which means now they are trying a slightly different scattered technique. If they are if you are together, you can take them out. But if they are scattered, what are you going to do? So this whole thing is becoming more gigantic. Will this ever get solved?
Well, it can. There is only way to solve these things is to address the root cause. The root cause is the state of Palestine. Two-state solution, living side by side. As long as you keep it hanging, fighting it, there will always be newer forms of more rabid fundamentalists and terrorists and extremists. In the name of Palestine, they'll capitalize on this. And Israel, if it does not change its policy from only security driven policy, I keep telling my friends here, Israeli friends, with generals and all there, I said, look, we have been suffering from terrorism from Pakistan for 40 years, but we have not gone against the people of a certain number of people there. We have only gone after the terrorists. So you fight the terrorists rather than fighting the whole population. I mean, carpet bombing of the whole population. Do you think you are not going to have more radicalized people coming out of that? The children who have seen this kind of a thing, when they grow up, what kind of memories they will have? So this has not worked for last 80 years. It will not work going forward for them. So it is very important. Now, of course, these Hamas knows that it is not going to be, and this part of the agreement, that they will not be a part of the governance architecture going forward. Right now, they have agreed for some kind of a technical team, which will be led by Tony Blair, who had worked out this plan, and overall supervision of President Trump. Because if US is not there, it is not going to go around. And he has been very, very categorical. And I must say that the fact that in 2 days, you had J.D. Vance, you had Steve Witkoff, you have Jared Kushner, you have had Marco Rubio following on the heels, means they did not trust that Netanyahu will continue to abide by the thing. Because the unfortunate part of Netanyahu is that he is carrying on with a government which is totally ultra-nationalist.
Yes.
And within ultra-nationalist means they don't want the existence of the Palestinians. Many of them have said, bomb Gaza, nuclear bomb, use a nuclear bomb. Now, those are the kind of things. It's very, very difficult to have some kind of a sanity prevail there. So it is like Netanyahu is riding on a lion, basically. Once you come down off it, it's going to eat you up. That's the thing. Domestically, he is facing charges. Internationally, he is facing charges. So this is a problem for him also. At the same time, Hamas, of course, they have brought, the biggest success for Hamas has been that they have made Saudi Arabia into the biggest champion of the Palestinian cause today. And that is what they have done in this past. So let's hope that some good sense prevails and President Trump in the 3rd, 4th, 5th phase, whenever it is during his term, is able to do that. I mean, you have to grant the man one thing, that he has tried his level best, even though
Yes.
he is completely, doesn't have so much of leeway or leverage vis-a-vis the big, strong lobbies that operate in the United States. Despite that, although he stands committed to security of Israel, but he has been very unhappy with the way the country is being run today.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Trigunayat. Viewers, I'm going to be releasing a monologue of 2 parts about a movement in the United States that has been in existence for close to 50 years. It's called the Neocons movement or Neoconservatives. And this came from the 1960s when America was trying to integrate its blacks into the society and so on and so forth. And that is, to me, some of the shades of that are in the current MAGA also. And you need to understand this because Bibi Netanyahu grew up around the family that was the champion of the neocons movement, Crystals, Kristols, if I remember correctly. So it's a 2-part series. Do watch it, because this is like I'm trying to do Purva Paksha of what exactly happened. Why does Trump want to go and meet Putin in Budapest one day only to change his mind the next day? What happened in those 24 hours? So what happened is that 2 refineries of Russia owned, one in Romania and one in Poland, got bombed. So suddenly now NATO is saying, look, these guys are bombing at us. So people are saying, Russia says, no, this is false flag. Why would we bomb our owned refineries? So the jury is out on that still. My point I'm trying to make is, please do watch that, because we don't even see. I have lived in US for decades, but I was not aware of the neocons movement until recently, when I started looking at different perspectives from people. Said, look, everything ties back to the neocons. These people are warmongers, whether they are in Israel or in US or in UK, everywhere it's the same objective. Everything aggression, go to war with somebody else. So please do watch that, because you need to understand how exactly or how to make sense of this zigging and zagging. Trump has his heart in the right place, according to me, and that's what Ambassador Trigunayat also is saying. Same thing, he is trying his best to stop this madness in Russia-Ukraine war. But there are people who have some objectives and they are not going to stop. In fact, if you look at Utsav Chakrabarti's conversation with me 2 days ago, he goes to a city level as to where Russia's objectives are. Until they get these cities, they are not going to stop, because these are all majority Russian-speaking cities, and Putin has done his homework. He thinks that the Ukrainian, by the way, the standard of living in Russia is much higher than that of Ukraine. See, that is the other thing. So the Ukrainian people will say, oh, I have better future being part of Russia than being part of Ukraine. What is going to be left of it? So anyway, let's talk about it in a different day. Ambassador Trigunayat, for the wonderful conversation, sir. We went back 100 years, and there are lots of factual, fictional stories that are coming out in OTT platforms, viewers, Netflix, for example, or Amazon Prime. I would urge you to look at it from all different angles, each one's perspectives. Very beautifully done, very well crafted, very factual. Do look at them, because it widens your knowledge. This is not going to go away. It doesn't matter. And also, I would urge many of you who have not watched my documentary on Shukracharya. 10-minute documentary. It's in English and in Hindi. Do watch it. Because what do our Shastras say about how this whole conflict developed? It goes back to Shukracharya days. Do watch it. And we have given references. So don't come and tell me this is all a bunch of BS, because we are giving you references in the description section. You need to understand how people are connecting the dot. That's how we made a movie out of it. To watch it, because this is a complex problem. Sir, we have a couple of questions from our viewers, and then we can wrap it up.
Please.
A first question from Manoj San. Rise of USA as a superpower, birth of Israel, and Cold War seem very correlated and intertwined. Neocons seem to be the union of Cold War lobby plus Israel lobby having love-hate for India. Can we cope?
We are coping very well, actually, I must say, despite what is Mr. Trump's unusual style is. We don't have to worry. Israel is our very strong partner. But as a good friend and a partner, we keep telling them what is not correct. That is there. And Israel is one country that has also stood with India all along. And we value that. But at the same time, a friend is a friend who tells you what is wrong. But President Trump, on the other hand, has become a bit difficult, because, in my view, that is not the reason that it is trade or tariffs or something like that. It was essentially, he felt slighted when he was not given credit for stopping the India-Pakistan conflict, recent conflict, which he continues to assume and has spoken about it 40 times. But that is only one vertical of our relationship. Our relationship is far, far more expansive. But India, in my view, will continue to follow. And big civilizations, old civilizations, cannot be subjugated to these kind of behaviors of the countries which are startup nations. They will continue to rise and continue to come back there. India will follow a policy of its strategic autonomy and multi-alignments.
Next one, please. Milburn Cherian wants to know, do you think that things will escalate in the Middle East and spread globally?
Well, unfortunately, it could happen at any time, because, see, the Iran and Israel are the two countries which suffer from this mad syndrome. They want to destroy each other. And that is also, again, Iran takes basically, because Arab countries left the Palestinian cause, so Iranians and Turkish people became the masters of this particular issue and started propagating it. So hopefully it will not happen, because, see, for us, India, if that happens, this will be worse for the world, but at the same time, much, much more worse for India, because we are in this region. It's virtually an existential region for us. We are dependent for our energy security with them. We have 9.5 million Indians who are sending about $60-70 billion a year. We have all our choke points and all our lanes of communications going through that, so most of our trade. So from our end, apart from trade and investment, I mean, this is a region which is extremely important. Hence, its stability and security is of paramount importance to us. There are maximum number of hotspots that you can find are also present in this West Asia, North Africa region. So only thing that can keep it is probably as long as these big superpowers do not go beyond a point to destabilize it. But there is always the potential of escalation, and if the escalation happens, it will be no holds barred.
Ambassador Trigunayat, I don't know if you picked up on this news. Yesterday, I think, one of the biggest banks in Iran has just went bankrupt. And this has spread panic because they are saying two more banks are also in big trouble. So now people are suspecting whether people's money was taken out and used to buy up arms and what have you to support these three different H units. And so this is a genuine crisis. When you go and hit your, pockets, it becomes a huge crisis. So that is an evolving story, viewers. We'll keep you posted on that in a separate episode, but it is a big concern. If banks fail, that's a huge problem because it affects every individual. And Iran is a developed society. I think the literacy is like 90 or 95%. They know their stuff. And so it's not like, US has kept them sanctioned for close to 50 years, and they still continue to grow. So thank you once again, Ambassador Trigunayat. Looking from a diplomatic lens, this is something else. We have one more question. Sorry about that. Ashish Hegde wants to know, what will be the response of Russia to the US sanctions? Will the Ukraine conflict end?
Well, Russia has more than 1,600 or 1,700, I think, sanctions already. And the 19th set of sanctions have been introduced by the European Union. And Russia has suffered, no doubt, but at the same time, the economy is doing reasonably well, 3.5% growth. It's a war economy, and they will sustain it for some more time. I don't think there's going to be any major problem, but they are focusing more on Eurasia now instead of Europe and the United States. So their focus is more towards Asia, India, China, Japan, India and China and several other countries in the region. That's their focus mainly, Central Asia and all. So I think that every country suffers from war. There is no winners in that. And Russia is, of course,
yes, indeed. This question triggered another thought in my mind. Viewers, Russia is fighting this war very cleverly. They are using North Korean troops. They are using people from Chechnya. They are using people from those areas which have risen up in revolt against Russia. So it's a killing two birds with one stone. Putin is also putting them in harm's way. I don't know where this is going to end, but certainly Russia has the threshold. It has the power. It has the capacity to absorb this pain and still be standing. They don't have a lot of population, right? They don't have a lot of population. One reason why they want to annex the Russian-speaking regions in Ukraine is because they want their population to grow a little bit more. It's too cold to procreate, in my opinion. I could be wrong, of course. But thanks once again, Ambassador Trigunayat. What a pleasure talking to you, sir. We'll be back with the good ambassador in 4 weeks' time. We'll keep you posted, viewers. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. We'll be back in about 15 minutes with the Gunner Shot team, and we'll be talking about the new book by Lieutenant General Raj Shukla. Thanks once again, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's an excellent book, I must say.
Thank you. Thank you.
He's a very good friend of mine. Yes.
Thank you, sir.